alaikum. On behalf of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the family of the Nation of Islam, we'd like to welcome and thank each and every one of you that are listening via webcast and those that are here in the city of Chicago at Mosque Mariam. We thank you for coming to join us on this Tuesday evening. And just as we start our program, we want everyone to take out a notebook, take out a pencil, take out a pen. This is a classroom. And as we learned when we were in kindergarten and first grade, let us put our thinking caps on as we're blessed to hear from our brother, Dr. Ali Muhammad. And before we bring him on, we would like to bring forward Brother Michael Muhammad to carry us forward into our program. Please give Brother Michael Muhammad a warm round of applause.
Assalamu alaikum. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, the All-Wise, True and Living God, the Sender of all prophets and the Revealer of all truth, we thank Allah for His coming in the person of Master Farad Muhammad and for raising from among us the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. And we thank them both for the Honorable Louis Farrakhan today, for without him, many of us wouldn't even be here. And so we're very honored, brothers and sisters, to have an opportunity to participate in this work, and happy that you are here today for this second class in dialogue, right? So how many people were here for the first one? Okay, good. So this is, okay, so the attendance is pretty consistent. And if you're watching via webcast, then that's fantastic. And if you have not done this yet, feel free to take the website address and pass it on to those that you feel can benefit from these classes, because they are open online to the public. And I believe that website is www.finalcall.com/webcast/Tuesday class. So we want to have as many viewers as possible online, but at the same time, we want everyone to come into the mosque, to the believers, registered Muslims and family, to come into the mosque and watch them in fellowship together and take the class in person. But for those who are unable to do that, then the invitation is to watch it online, okay? So please feel free to share that with everyone. So today is Brother Abdul Alim Muhammad's second class on dialogue. And one of the announcements that he wanted me to make is that we go to this website. This is the second one. The first one was the address for the class, to watch the class. This website is called atonementcommission.com. And there are management and dialogue training videos there. And the minister has asked everyone to go through those as well, okay? This is an ongoing process of transforming the way we do what we do, the way we do our work, the way we relate to one another, transforming our culture so that we can be more productive, more creative, able to talk to one another in a way that we can quickly come to consensus, come to conclusions, create new ideas, and then have the management skills so that when we quickly come to consensus and we create new ideas, we're the type of people that can get it done quickly. You see what I mean? And that's part of that knowledge that is so important to us as a people that we've struggled with, right? Many of our organizations tend to have meetings after meetings after meetings, Negro organizations. You ever heard of those? Okay, a Negro organization. How do you know it's a Negro organization? Well, Negro comes from the word necro, which means dead. It's dead, meaning there's no life. They will not get anything done. See? So they may meet and talk 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 and never be able to convert that talk into anything valuable, whether it be a good, clear idea or a plan of action that they can actually go out and implement and get done in a reasonable amount of time. Does that make sense? And so what this is about, this process, is about transforming our culture as a people to being those that can come together, meet, come to conclusions, and implement our conclusions in a very brief amount of time. And so that's what this is about. And without any delay, we are honored and happy to have Brother Dr. Abdul Ali Muhammad to do the second class on dialogue. So let's bring him on with a round of applause. Thank you.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, the All-Wise, the True, and the Living God who came to us in person, we thank Him for coming. We thank Him for raising up in the midst of us one of our little brothers through the process of dialogue. He talked to him day and night for 3 years and about 4 or 5 months. And in the process of that talking, in the process of that dialogue, in the process of that questioning and answering, a marvelous transformation took place in a man who started out in a state of mental death. And it ended up with him being lifted up, resurrected into a state of oneness with God, so that at a later time he could say that he turned me into himself through the process of dialogue. So we thank the both of them, Master Farad Muhammad and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, for their servant to us today that's in our midst, that is leading us and teaching us and guiding us, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And it is in their names that I offer the greetings of peace. We say it in the Arabic language, Assalamu alaikum. So how's everybody doing this evening? I too am fine, giving thanks and praise to Allah, working hard in His name, trying to make His word my bond. And brothers and sisters, I'm very, very happy to be here. I get excited just thinking about these Tuesday evenings. And I look forward to the next step in a long journey till we become a nation of dialogue. Now, last week, we did quite a bit, covered a lot of territory, and there's a lot of territory yet to cover over the next 2 or 3 weeks. Tonight, as you can see, our topic is dialogue for self-discovery and family survival. Self-discovery and family survival. We're going to review a little bit of what we covered last week because that's sort of a segue into tonight's topic, but we're not going to spend too much going over what we've previously covered. Brother Michael already said to you that you should go to the website, atonementcommission.com, and you should go through all the material that is on that website because there is much of value that is on that website, and it is part of the preparation to the transformation that all of us must undergo. That's why the topic this evening about self-discovery is so important. You and I always have the responsibility to discover who we are, what we are, where we are, and where we are going. And then the most important question of all, why we are. Why am I alive? What is my purpose? What is my destiny? Once I discover who I am and what I am and where I'm going, how do I accomplish my goal or my mission or my purpose in life? How do I successfully arrive at my destination? In some respects, life can be compared to a journey. You decide where you want to go, and then you decide, you work out the means to get there. And if you follow the map, if you follow the road, if you follow the signs, if your vehicle is in good working order, and everything goes as planned, and you give enough time, then ultimately you will arrive at your destination safe and sound. But if you don't know where you want to go, you don't have any reason to get there. Well, that's confusion, isn't it? And so you fit that description, all dressed up and no place to go. And so you're one of these guys that you see in the neighborhoods just riding around the block, showboating, but with no place to go, burning up gas, wearing out the car, wasting time, really, wasting life, really. No particular place in mind to go. Well, many of us, isn't that how we live our lives? Is as though we're just drifting along, and wherever we end up, we want to say, well, that must be what Allah intended. I'm in the ditch now. So Allah intended for me to be in the ditch. No, you're in the ditch because you didn't know where you were going, and you didn't know how to operate your vehicle. You didn't obey the road signs. You ignored the conditions of the road, and since you were careless as a driver, now you're in the ditch, or you're headed to the ditch, and you may or may not ever reach your ultimate destination. Well, now, we're the Nation of Islam, aren't we? So we have had a great destiny, a great destination already pointed out to us, where we're supposed to end up. And since we have become believers in the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, then it means that we have accepted that great destination as our own. That the destination of Allah, that Allah has in mind for us, now we have accepted that and personalized that, but each one of us got to go our own self. This is not like a hayride where everybody piles in the back of the wagon and it is just one person that knows the way. No, all of us have got to walk our own way. All of us have got to walk our own path. All of us have got to live our own lives. We are individual men and women, and yes, in certain aspects we can be together. But as I learned as a young Muslim in the Nation of Islam, every tub sits on its own bottom. You will not be asked, the Holy Quran says, what others did. You will only be held responsible for what you did and what you do. And so therefore it is incumbent on us to engage in a process of self-discovery so that we may successfully live our own individual lives. Does that make sense? Well, now let's see. I guess I have to do the same thing this week I did last week. I have to come down here because otherwise I can't see the slide. Could I see the next slide, please? Oh, this is the wrong. This is not. Go to slide 49, please. Ain't technology wonderful? Here we go. Dialogue for Self-Discovery and Family Survival. Next slide, please. Next slide. Now, this looks familiar. This is similar to some of the diagrams or graphics that we presented last week. And I'm just flashing it up on the screen this time to remind you of what you saw. You see the red triangle, and then you see the six-pointed figure overlaid on the red triangle. And one of the major points of showing you this image, this graphic, is to remind you of how complicated everything actually is. Now, this is a symbol that in the Arabic is called Wajh Allah. Wajh Allah can be loosely translated to mean the face of Allah. Probably a more compelling translation would be the presence of Allah. So this is the symbol of the presence of God, a symbol of the presence of Allah. And because it is based on the number 9, in the Greek it is referred to as the Enneagram, which just means a 9-pointed figure. But it represents systems that operate in the created universe. And every created system, whether it is the planetary system or the human organism, is based on the number 9. When you study Allah's creation and you cannot detect that there are 9 aspects to whatever it is that you're studying, then it means that you got to keep studying, because you're overlooking something, you're missing something. Something is absent from your analysis, and if you operate on the basis of an incomplete analysis, then you will not be as successful as you otherwise would be. If you think that you know something, then spell it out in terms of the 9 aspects or principles of that thing, and if you really do know it, you'll know what all 9 are. If you only know 8, then you know you got to look for one more. There's something missing. If you only know 3 or you only know 4, then the mathematics will tell you how many aspects of beingness are missing from your analysis. So now we're not going to be looking at all of the things in the universe tonight, but we're going to be looking at self. And then we are going to look at the context in which self occurs naturally in this universe, and that is the institution called family. Because you don't get here by yourself, do you? You get here through the agency of other people. And those close relatives of yours, through whom you come and with whom you live and by whom you are nurtured and raised and protected, that's what we call your family. And of course, the definition of family can be expanded. It can be more than your mother and your father and your sisters and your brothers, because they also had parents, didn't they? Your parents had parents. And they may have had sisters and brothers and uncles and aunts and cousins and nephews and nieces. And the concept of family can be expanded even further than that, because ultimately you are a part of a wide network of people who to some degree are related to one another by blood. And then we can expand the definition of family even beyond that, because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said he would not rest until he caused us to call one another brother and sister, recognizing that all of us are members of the same family, and the original ancestor or founder or progenitor of our family, of which we are an equal member, is God Himself. So we really can't engage in self-discovery in isolation. You can only engage in true self-discovery in your relationship to other people, especially those who are closely related to you. If a brother is interested in a sister,
thinking that perhaps she would be a good choice as a wife, my advice to that brother is go visit her mother's house. When you see the condition of her mother's house, and you see what is on her mother's table, then that's going to give you a good idea of what's going to be in your house and what's going to be on your table. And vice versa, sister. If you're looking at a man, you're interested in a man because you think he might be a good potential husband for yourself, well, why don't you go visit with his father? Take a peek at his father and see what kind of man that was, because in all likelihood, what you're going to get in that brother as a husband is what that man was to his wife and to his family. And if you see a problem anywhere along the line, you better believe that that problem is in all likelihood going to be duplicated in your family situation. Got quiet in here, didn't it? Somebody sitting out there said, I wish I had heard that about 5 years ago. Could I see the next slide? What we are doing in these classes that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has authorized for the Nation of Islam, we are growing circles of dialogue. I get a lot of emails lately, some phone calls from people all over the country, and they've got problems with dialogue. They're in a mosque or a study group, or they're in their family or whatever the setting is, and they're trying to get into this dialogue thing, and they're running into problems. And that's why we're having this training course, because after we had the conference on the farm with the laborers, I cautioned them that they should be very careful when they go back home, because even though they had experienced a process of dialogue in the farm conference, yet it was a new process that they were not the masters of. They had experienced something, but they didn't create it. They were not the experts in it. And so therefore, be careful when you go back home trying to introduce people to something that you yourself are hardly familiar with. Even if some of the laborers had prior experience in dialogue and maybe were a bit more prepared than the average one, the other side of the coin is that the believers who did not attend the conference of dialogue at the farm, they weren't familiar with dialogue. And so some of the reports that I've been getting have to do with people who crashed into a dialogue session, claiming that they were in dialogue, but in fact they didn't know the first thing about it. There's rules to dialogue. And from some of the reports that I was getting, they were breaking all the rules. And so even at this late date, I'm saying to one and all who are tuned into this webcast, be patient with the process and learn the process first. Don't think already that you have learned it, much less mastered it. It's being introduced to you. And it will be quite some time before you actually understand what it is. Now, let me apologize for something. Maybe for two things. One is that talking about dialogue in this way, like I'm doing right now, is kind of like going to a group of teenage boys who want to play basketball, and you bore them to death by going over all the rules of the game. That's boring. They don't want to hear the rules of the game. What do they want to do? They want to play. Even if they don't know the rules, they still want to play. They don't care about the rules. All they see is a ball and a basket and a court, and they're ready to go. And they figure like this, I'll learn the rules along the way. And that might work. Might be a few fist fights along the way because somebody did something they weren't supposed to do, but since you didn't know the rules, you didn't even know that was wrong. You have to know the rules so you know what's right and what's wrong. If you don't know the rules, then you'll do things that are wrong and won't even know it. Until somebody hits you in your jaw with their elbow. And you wonder why did they do that? Because you were wrong. And that's their way, that's the wrong way of letting you know that you're wrong, but that's how the fight starts. So it's actually better to begin with a pretty thorough going over of the rules. Then you can get into the game, even though it's kind of boring, just to hear somebody talk about the rules. The second thing that I want to apologize about is all this talking that I'm doing. This is too much talking. Brother Ahmed, I don't think he'll mind me sharing this with everyone. One of the messenger's sons said that he had an experience. It was a dream. And in this dream, his father, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, came to him. And he was very, very angry, very, very upset. And the only thing he said in the dream is, you all do too much talking. You all do too much talking. Well, now, as a longtime preacher in the Nation of Islam, I know that applies to me. I do too much talking. If you look at us as a group, that dream is a true dream because we do too much talking and not enough doing. But on the other hand, in order to teach people, in order to present something to people, well, you got to engage in some talk. But we can get carried away with it till all we do is talk, and when we talk, we think we're doing something. No, you're doing something. When you're doing something, usually that's when you shut your mouth and go to work. That's when you actually start doing something. But when you're running your mouth, that's all you're doing is running your mouth, talking about doing something. Is that all right? So I apologize for the necessity of having too much to say. But I don't know any other way around it. But I'm trying to get us to the point where we will understand that the point is not to do a whole lot of talking. The point is to do a whole lot of working, to take action. One of the purposes of dialogue is to arrive at a point of consensus so that a decision can be made to take action. And then when you get to the point of consensus and decision and action, then let the talking cease. The reason I'm taking a little time on this point is when you're talking to a nation of talkers, see, they'll misperceive the invitation to dialogue as another invitation to talk. Talk even more than they used to talk. When in fact the opposite should be true. When dialogue is done properly, when a dialogue meeting is properly convened and properly run, even though dialogue is talking, yet the talk is very precise, it's very crisp, it's right to the point. It's not oratory, it's scientific. It's high definition, high intensity talk, and depending on what the topic is, it doesn't take a lot of time to resolve that topic. If it's a relatively simple topic, then you can actually resolve it in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Sometimes when the dialogue goes on and on and on and on, it is because the topic itself is too complex. It should have been thought about first, a little bit better, And maybe that topic could have been broken down into 4 or 5 subtopics. Then each of those subtopics can be handled one at a time, building consensus on each one. Then you end up with consensus on the whole. Or sometimes the topic is philosophical. It's one of these open-ended philosophical discussions that actually, if you read the history of the world, that topic has been under discussion for thousands of years. So now you're not going to resolve that in an hour or two of dialogue. You've just joined the dialogue of the philosophers. And that's okay if you understand that that's what you're doing. But the presentation of dialogue in the context of the present day Nation of Islam is more practical than that. It is to resolve practical issues that are impeding our progress, to solve problems among us that are causing disruptions and issues to exist among us that should not exist. And then we can reserve the philosophical for some other time. But let's solve these practical problems that are interfering with our progress. So, growing circles of dialogue. We introduced a kind of dialogue last week where I talked about calling a meeting of self. How many remember that? Under the dome of divine reasoning and understanding. And how many of you wrote that down in your notebooks? Okay, that's good. Now, how many of you since last week have convened such a meeting? Okay, a few hands. Give them a hand. Because I see that I'm a little bit disappointed. Some of us weren't here. Okay, so we have to make sure that in the future those tapes become available, and they will be, inshallah. Well, why do I say I'm a little disappointed? Because the whole point of going over this information is not for you to continue to be SpongeBob Muhammad. But it is for you to hear something that has practical, useful value that you can put to use immediately. This is not theoretical. We don't need more theory. What we need is practice, and only the bare minimal amount of theory to support the practice. But we want to be those who are not just hearers of a word, but those who are doers of a word. So bring that orientation to these Tuesday evening classes, that what you are listening to is not something just to be listened to. It's something to be done. And so the circle of dialogue begins with yourself. And then it should spread to those that are around the self, essentially the family, and then the friends, and then the neighbors, and organizations and groups that you might be a part of. I'm going to use the occasion of my own family reunion that just took place this past weekend. And I wasn't thinking about this last week, but since I experienced that family reunion, it turns out that that family reunion really was a family dialogue. And I'm going to show how that relates to the topic of self-discovery. Growing circles of dialogue will lead us to the point where we can talk to anybody about anything that needs to be talked about. That we will be able to handle any problem or any situation or any challenge that confronts us. Whether we are confronted with it as individuals or as a family or as an organization or as a nation. Are you following me? And then as a nation, or we could say as a community, then as a dialogue community or a dialogue nation, then we will be able to put ourselves in dialogue with other communities and with other nations. If we had dialogue among the nations of the world today, then would there be war? No, if people actually knew how to confront one another, not in a violent way, but confront one another as people, person to person, man to man, community to community, nation to nation. And if they practice the process of deliberative dialogue, then whatever the conflict is, whatever the problem is, they would solve it and they would never resort to arms. What is the literal meaning of the Nation of Islam? That term, Nation of Islam. What is the literal meaning of it? Nation of peace. Well, how can the Nation of Islam be, in fact, the nation of peace unless and until that Nation of Islam has mastered the techniques of deliberative dialogue? So that wherever we find conflict, wherever we find dis-ease, wherever we find hatred and enmity and misunderstanding existing between people, whether it is inside our community or outside our community, through the process of deliberative dialogue, we can bring peace. In that sense, deliberative dialogue supports the practice of Islam. Islam is literally a movement among people on this planet that will establish a kingdom of peace among all people. Go read it for yourself on the back page of the paper. Well, how can we get to that point number 12 unless we have a technique that is guaranteed to bring about peace and the establishment of justice among people and fair dealings and proper relationships among people? We have to have a science or a technology that produces that. Otherwise, we just hoping and praying. Well, Islam ain't a hoping and praying kind of religion. I mean, I'm not saying we're not supposed to hope and pray. Of course we pray. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad described Islam as mathematics. Well, mathematics is not hoping and praying. Mathematics is the power of prediction. Mathematics is the solid basis of science. When a man is scientifically educated in a discipline, he ain't hoping it turns out a certain way. He's not just praying that it turns out a certain way. He knows it will turn out a certain way according to the principles of mathematics. Because it is the principles of mathematics that undergirds the entire creation. So if we master those principles, if we master mathematics, if we learn mathematics, then we're guaranteeing our success. And at the same time, what is it doing for the individual who masters mathematical principles, scientific principles, and the principles of dialogue? It is transforming that man or that woman from some weak, helpless type of being that's almost like a beast into a real human being in the image and likeness of God, who begins to exercise power and dominion over everything that is in the world like God intended for you to do. Is that all right? See, I'm trying to sell you on dialogue. That's all I'm trying to do. To show you what kind of people you would be if you knew it. Now let me clear it up again, because we got a lot of misperceptions among us. See, we were trained up in this world to fake it until you make it. See, that kind of faking it till you make it stuff don't work in dialogue. The fakers can't sit in a circle of dialogue because you can't be fake when you come to a circle of dialogue. You got to be actual. You've got to be real. So the people who like that fake it till you make it kind of thing, they feel very uncomfortable when they're in dialogue. Could I have everybody stand up, please? Those on the webcast, I'm talking to you too. Now, pair up. I want you to turn so that you're facing the person next to you. I hope it's an even number in the room. Now stand about 3 feet apart. Stand directly opposite. Not at an angle, but directly opposite. A little bit closer, brother. A little bit closer. Now, what we are going to do is a little drill. And the drill is in the process of confrontation. Now, confrontation has a negative connotation. I don't mean it from the negative side. See, when we say confront somebody, that means we're belligerent and we're being aggressive. No. The gentle side of confrontation just means to be present comfortably in the presence of others. Just be present. Be aware of the fact that you are present and that you yourself occupy your own space and time. Now, I want you to close your eyes. The first part of this drill, I just want you to close your eyes and just be comfortable where you are. Be comfortable with yourself, knowing that there is another person in close proximity. And I want you to feel easy about that. No anxiety, no nervousness, no sweating. It's easy. You are being yourself. You are there. You exist. I want you to feel consciously your own existence, your own self, occupying space, occupying time. And I want you to be aware of yourself, but at the same time aware that there are others and you're comfortable like that. Now, normally this drill would be continued for maybe 10 minutes, 20 minutes, just being very comfortable, relaxed. Be there. Be conscious of yourself being there. Now, we don't have that kind of time tonight, but this is phase 1 of the confrontation drill that I would like you to practice at home or in another setting at another time when you do have 10 minutes to 20 minutes to practice this phase. Now, would you please open your eyes? Now, this is the second phase confrontation drill. This time, now what's going on here? Well, go find your odd number. Now, they had 3 going, trying to do a threesome here. I mean, that's all right, but that's a little bit more complicated. You might get schizophrenic trying to look at 2 people at the same time. Now, this time, we want to do a confrontation drill, and this time, just look easily at the person who is in front of you. Don't try to stare them down. It's not about that. You're not trying to do anything to them. All you're trying to do is be yourself, occupy